is about VLOOKUP, and what I'm going to share is a little bit about how to use VLOOKUP to put in horizontally. So sometimes we'll get that information HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP confused by how we put the data in our spreadsheet. So let's go through here real quick, and I'll show you a great way to use VLOOKUP and some simple tips and tricks. So when we had our data originally, this information was hidden, or we didn't have any of that information, and we just had codes. So we're trying to figure out, okay, where's this information come from? Well, we downloaded our variable codes. So right here, it tells us this for enrollment, who's enrolled, and it gives us a code to go with it. This gives us frequencies for those codes. And this is a separate worksheet. That's the institutional dictionary that has now, it's larger and has now become a table. So let's go back here and do the VLOOKUP. So not on that page though. We've got the original data sheet. Okay, so we've got all the original data codes. Then I'm going to go back up to this page and I'll show you how I did this. So you notice all of these go together. I have not put any wraps in here yet or any formatting in here yet. So we just have code after code, right? A formula after formula after formula that goes uniquely along with our code. So I want to find out what line 2 is. UNITID. So I want to look it up, and I'm going to look it up under our variable codes. How did I figure that out? Because I just found that code there. So, oh, you can't see it in that part, but UNITD, there it is. Yay! So we're going to put that down with our 15,000 lines. So for our 15,000 lines, here we go. I'm going to press Control arrow. It's going to take me all the way down and show me that I have 15,000 lines here with no spaces and no holes in my data. I'm going to take that back up, and I want it to fill my 15,000 lines eventually, but I'm going to have a reference now to my 15,000 lines. So equals VLOOKUP. So let's go up here. I typed that in already, and once I type in equals VLOOKUP, now it's going to bring up, oh, is that not funny? It goes to my video. So no, I don't want that. Once I type in equals VLOOKUP, then it's going to take me to say, hey, where do you want to look up that information from? Well, I want it to take the information from A2, and then I want it to go to another table. So I want it to go to my table titled variable codes, which is what it's going to do. Down here, I titled this variable codes. And I want to have it look up these two rows, right? So right now, it's just looking up that table. But if I go these two rows and select it, now we've got A1 through B4, and I always want it to look up A1 through B4, so I'm going to make that an absolute, and by absolute I'm going to make sure my FN button is on and go to FN4, and it puts my dollar signs in there to make it absolute, and I want this absolute as well. So F4 is your shortcut for absolutes, to put your dollar signs around it, and there you go. Now here's the key. I want it to find it in that array, but where do I want to bring it over from? So what I'm telling it to do, sorry, I'm stuttering here, is to look in these two, find the code, and bring back what it says in relation to the code from row 2. So it's going to find UNITID and bring back the wording unique identification number of the institution. That's in row number 2. So I need to escape here, because you'll notice when I brought it over, then it said, oh, I want to look something else up. No, I don't. I'm just going to escape, and it'll go back to where I was, number 2, and then false. the range lookup, what false actually means is true. I only want it to bring up the information that is exactly the same, right? So I only want it to bring up the information that's exactly the same. VLOOKUP, rate value, column index, range lookup, exactly the same. You could also put a 0 in there for true, and that's it. I'm going to escape because it's already in there. And then you'll notice that it brought it back, yay. And then I did this little guy here, bring it over, and then that copies that. And I went all the way to the end. So I'm going to press Control, right arrow, and you'll notice it takes it all the way to the end. Oops, there we go, ta-da! So I only had to do my VLOOKUP once, and it will bring back my information like that. Now, you're going to have some NAs, because what I purposefully did is took out some of the codes for you to notice what happens when the codes aren't there. So it's going to tell you, hey, I can't look that up, can't find it, it's not there. So that tells you there's an issue there. So I'm going to have you go through and just delete all of those, just for this particular exercise. It's not valuable at any point for this if we were going to use the data for something larger or do some data analytics. However, at this point, it's fantastic because it's going to minimize our data a bit, and we have a little less to work with as we're learning how to create it. And it's teaching us what NA means. That information is not there.